I've spent the last decade obsessing over one question that haunts every single creator. Where does art really come from? I didn't want the shallow answer that we always hear. I wanted the truth. So I went deep into the minds of history's most revolutionary creators, like Dr. Seuss and Da Vinci, Picasso, Hemingway, you name it. And what I discovered shattered fundamental truths I thought I knew about creativity. And so today, I'm breaking down the six most fundamental transformative revelations about where art actually comes from. Truths that will completely rewire how you create for the rest of your life. If you're an artist who makes music, paintings, films, novels, whatever your medium, this message is something you need to hear. Let's begin. The first revelation shattered my understanding of creativity's core. I used to believe that art originates from our imagination, that to be creative meant to conjure worlds from nothing. But I was wrong. I looked at Dr. Seuss's whimsical worlds, Picasso's abstract paintings, Jim Carrey's exaggerated characters, and I attributed their brilliance to imagination. But after deep research, I discovered something shocking. Most art doesn't come from imagination, it comes from perception. Dr. Seuss revealed that he wasn't inventing fantasy worlds. He was showing us how absurd adult life really is. His book, The Sneetches, was about racism. The Lorax about environmental destruction. He saw real patterns in life and used surrealism to expose them. Even Picasso. Picasso's cubism was abstract in style, yes, but it was actually a new way of seeing reality from all sides, all feelings, all fragments at once. Even Jim Carrey described his characters as people he observes in everyday life. When we look at children, we say, oh, they have wild imaginations. But in reality, they're just perceiving the world through a lens of wonder. I remember vividly playing as a kid. My pillow fort was really a castle to me. Somewhere along the way, we just stopped seeing the world with wonder. We separate perception and imagination as real world and the fake world. We trade eyes that feel the world for eyes that filter the world. But artists are the ones who refuse that trade. Your most powerful art isn't hiding in some imaginary realm. It's hiding in plain sight, in the details only you notice, in the connections only you make, in the questions only you ask. Art begins when you pay attention to what others ignore. All right, now the next revelation I had was even more counterintuitive than that. It was this. When we think about creativity, we think about making things, like building things and adding more to the mix. But that's only half of the story, and not even the most important half. When I was 13, I won an art contest and won a trip to Italy. I hopped on a plane and literally left my parents in the US for weeks to go learn about art and creativity from Italian masters. I saw Leonardo da Vinci's paintings in the Uffizi Museum. I traveled around and sketched landscapes and architecture and learned the craft of making frescoes. But on that trip, one piece stood out to me that completely changed the way that I viewed creativity. It was Michelangelo's sculpture of the David. I decided to go down the rabbit hole of Michelangelo's creative process, and you won't believe what I discovered. Michelangelo claimed that he didn't create David. He insisted that the figure was already in the marble. He said I merely removed everything that wasn't David. Most people think that's a metaphor, but it's not. It's a method. I've dug through the creative process of hundreds of creatives across various fields, from painters and designers, choreographers, composers. And many of them often describe that their best work comes from the same sensation. Their best ideas don't feel invented, they feel inevitable, as if they already existed. And the artist's job wasn't to build them, it was to find them. Bob Dylan once said, the songs are there. They exist all by themselves, just waiting for someone to write them down. This isn't like mystical talk. It's how great art feels. Like it was already there, like waiting for someone to just clear away the noise. Subtraction is hard because it forces you to confront what's essential. The blank page, the silent studio, the pantry full of ingredients. Your best work isn't about what you add, it's about what you dare to remove. Now, this next revelation is one of the revelations that people resist the most. It what separates the dreamers from the doers. It destroys another myth that art comes from inspiration. And if you're waiting for inspiration to strike, you'll be waiting your whole life. Every master creator I studied shared one trait. They understood that art doesn't come from inspiration, it comes from iteration. The divine spark isn't the beginning of creation, it's what happens in the middle of the work. Picasso made over 50,000 works in his lifetime. Mozart composed over 600 pieces before he died at 35 years old. Their genius wasn't in having better ideas, it was in having more ideas and then refining them relentlessly. Often, what distinguishes artists from aspiring ones isn't talent, it's endurance. 100 bad paintings, 100 bad songs, or 100 bad paragraphs, so that the one great one can accidentally emerge. Creators understand that the first version is never right. Their job isn't to be inspired, but to keep going anyway, especially when it's not working. If you're an artist, this is terrifying, yes, but it's also freeing. It means that you don't need to wait. There's nothing to wait for. You can start today. Just make something bad, then make it better. And if you do that enough times, the good work will come. Even me, I wrote over 6,000 notes about creativity dating back to 2013 before I started sharing my ideas about creativity with you. By the way, if you would like all my notes on creativity over the years, just tap the link in the description and tell me where to send them. All right. This next truth flips everything that we've been taught about creative freedom on its head. So, most artists think creativity comes from freedom, from no constraints. But the opposite is true. Art comes from limitation. And I know it goes against the think outside the box that you hear all the time. But hear me out. In my notes, I call this the key of limitations, and I have a beautiful note about how Ernest Hemingway understood this. He had a minimalist writing technique called the iceberg theory, where he believed that the most powerful truths lied beneath the surface of words and meant for readers to uncover. So one afternoon, over lunch, he was with some writer friends and they challenged him to complete a story using only 6 words. And everyone at the table doubted him. But he was so confident in his craft that Hemingway took the bet and scribbled 6 words on the napkin and then handed it over to them. And immediately the table fell silent. They were shaken by the words he wrote and by the weight of the words that he didn't say. The napkin read, "For sale, baby shoes, never worn." How profound is that? It's the words that he didn't say. It's the simplicity of that message that packs a punch. You see, you don't always need to think outside the box. Sometimes you need to make the box smaller. I see this pattern in countless creators. Picasso used only blue during his blue period. Dr. Seuss wrote green eggs and ham using only 50 words. Marcus Pearson built Minecraft using blocky graphics due to indie developer limitations. Coco Chanel, the Beatles, Chuck Close, you name it. Creators across all domains create art from limitations. I used to be scared of a blank canvas. It used to make my heart race. The blank canvas is terrifying precisely because it's boundless. When we can do anything, we often do nothing. But give yourself a constraint. Like, I'll only use blue tones, or I'll write a story in 50 words, or I'll redecorate this room with a $300 budget. And suddenly you'll start to notice your creativity flowing. Suddenly, every brushstroke, word, or item has weight. Every choice matters. Creativity stops being about what you can do and starts being about what you must do within limitations. Next time you're stuck, don't open things up. Don't ask for more tools or more time or more freedom. Give yourself less. Constraints don't hinder you. They tell you where to dig. They give you edges to push against and tension to resolve. Art doesn't come from having infinite choices. It comes from having to make one. Now we've reached the revelation that might be the most profound revelation about creativity source because it's one that neuroscience is just now beginning to confirm, but artists around the world have known for a very long time. So most people believe that art comes from the conscious mind, that to be an artist, you have to sit down and think hard and push through. But this view is dangerously wrong. It leads artists to strangle the very process that they're trying to nurture. Let me explain. So, in 2008, a team at Johns Hopkins hooked jazz musicians to brain scanners and asked them to improvise. What they found was startling. During improvisation, the purest act of spontaneous creativity, the part of the brain responsible for self judgment completely shut off. Not dimmed, not reduced. It went completely dark. In those quiet, relaxed moments, our brain can connect ideas in new ways. Creativity flows best when we stop trying to control it. Everyone's had that experience, the idea that arrives in the shower or on a walk or at 3 a.m. You weren't trying. This is a terrifying thing for people to think about who want creativity to be a skill. If you believe that the conscious mind is the source of your best work, you would try harder, you will push more, you will think longer. But this is like stomping on the gas while your car's in neutral. You will make noise, you will burn fuel, but you won't get anywhere. The alternative, though, is cultivating the gaps. I use a technique called strategic incompleteness, where I intentionally leave a piece of writing or art halfway finished before I go to sleep. I let the brain itch overnight. I create a void in my subconscious that can't help but be filled. Often the next morning, the answer is waiting for me. The problem with most artists isn't that they're not creative, it's that they won't get out of their way long enough for creativity to find them. So if you're blocked, don't try harder. Stop trying at all. Go for a walk, take a nap. Leave that line or work or a brushstroke unfinished. Sometimes the art isn't in the thinking, it's in the waiting. And now, here's the most radical truth of all, one that doesn't just change how you create, but transforms how you see yourself as a creator. The greatest lie you've been told about creativity is that art is something separate from ourselves, something we produce, something we make, something we generate. But the most profound truth I discovered is this: art doesn't come from you, art is you. Your creations are not things you make, they are fragments of you externalized. Your unique perception made tangible, your consciousness given form. This changes everything about how you approach creation. Look, you don't need to find your voice. You need to remove what's blocking your voice. You don't need to discover your style. You need to stop hiding your natural instincts. You don't need to search for inspiration. You need to recognize that you are the inspiration. The journey isn't about becoming a better artist. It's about becoming more fully yourself. By noticing what only you can see, by carving away what isn't you, by persisting when others would quit, by thriving within your unique boundaries, and by honoring the quiet spaces of your mind. Because the world doesn't need more artists desperately hunting for something outside themselves. It needs more people brave enough to become living expressions of who they truly are. Your best art is waiting for you to finally realize that it's been you all along.